Our brains are basically professional storytellers. From the second we wake up, they take this absolute flood of chaotic information coming at us and they try to weave it into a story that makes sense. And honestly, it's our greatest survival tool. But what happens when the storyteller gets it wrong? Today, we're going to dig into the little glitches in our perception, those moments our brains find meaning and intention in what is actually just the pure, silent static of randomness. I mean, you felt this, right? That perfect string of green lights when you're rushing to a big meeting. The bizarre coincidence that feels like some kind of sign, or that lucky streak that just seems way too good to be true. In those moments, there's always this little whisper. Is there some hidden hand guiding things? Or are we just connecting dots that were never meant to form a picture in the first place? Okay, take a really close look at this image. What you're seeing are 1,000 dots placed completely at random. But I'm willing to bet you're seeing something else, aren't you? Do you see those little clusters forming? Those big empty voids? Maybe even what look like tiny galaxies of dots? If you do, your brain is absolutely screaming pattern. But here's the thing. This is exactly what true randomness looks like. That feeling you just had, that deep instinct to find an order where there isn't one, it actually has a name. It's a cognitive glitch, a fundamental blind spot in how we reason. And it has some pretty profound consequences, influencing everything from how we invest our money to some of our most deeply held beliefs. This is the clustering illusion. See, our brains are hardwired to completely underestimate just how much streakiness and clumpiness happens naturally in random data. We expect randomness to look all nice and uniform, spread out evenly. But in reality, it's clumpy. Those clusters you see aren't a sign of some hidden order. They are literally a signature of chance itself. It's the same reason we believe in the hot hand in basketball, even when decades of statistics show it just doesn't exist. And this illusion had literal life-or-death consequences during World War II. As V-2 rockets were falling on London, people developed these elaborate theories about where the Germans were targeting. They saw clusters of impacts and became convinced that some neighborhoods were being aimed for while others were safe. But a statistical analysis after the war revealed a shocking truth. The impact sites perfectly matched a purely random distribution. There were no patterns. The safe zones people were clinging to for hope were nothing but an illusion. So this brings us to our next big idea. I want you to imagine a kind of cosmic elastic band, and it's always pulling things back toward the middle. So whenever something gets stretched way out to an extreme, exceptionally good or exceptionally bad, this invisible force just gently tugs it back towards average. So this elastic band is a really important statistical law called regression toward the mean. Now, it doesn't mean the universe is like correcting itself. It simply means that an extreme event is usually a combination of two things: a stable factor, like your skill, and a really unstable one, like luck. For that same extreme thing to happen again, the extreme luck has to happen again. And it's just not very likely. And this, right here, illustrates the point perfectly. A top score isn't just about high skill. It's almost always high skill plus a big dose of good luck. So on the retest, the skill is still there, but the luck, it's probably going to be more average. The result is a good score, for sure, but probably not another record breaker. And the exact same thing is true in reverse for really terrible performances. They regress. They just move back toward the average. Misunderstanding this has massive real-world consequences. The Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman tells this amazing story about teaching flight instructors. They were absolutely convinced that screaming at a cadet after a bad maneuver worked because, the cadet almost always did better the next time. And they believed praise didn't work because a fantastic maneuver was usually followed by a more mediocre one. They were completely and totally wrong. They weren't seeing the effects of punishment and reward. They were just seeing regression toward the mean, live in action. Okay, so we've seen that randomness creates these illusory patterns, and it pulls extremes back to the middle. But it also does something else, something that feels even more profound. It basically operates a kind of miracle machine. This machine runs on a pretty simple principle known as the law of truly large numbers. Now, it's more of an observation than a formal mathematical law, but it is incredibly powerful. All it says is that if you have a large enough number of opportunities, any outrageous event isn't just possible, it's practically inevitable. Think of a 1 in a million shot. Well, if you get a million chances, that shot becomes pretty likely. The mathematician J.E. Littlewood took this a step further. He created something called Littlewood's Law, and he defined a miracle as a special 1 in a million event. Seems impossibly rare, doesn't it? Well, let's apply this miracle machine to your own life.
Just think, how many events do you experience? Littlewood estimated that when you're awake, you experience something, a sight, a sound, a distinct thought, about once every second. Okay, so over the course of a single month, that adds up to roughly 1 million distinct events.
So, if you experience a million events a month and a miracle is a 1 in a million occurrence, well, you should statistically expect to experience one miracle every single month. That mind-bending coincidence, that moment of pure improbability, it's probably not a sign the universe is sending you a secret message. It's a sign that the miracle machine is working exactly as it should. So we've seen how our brains mess up when they interpret chance all by themselves. But there's another related glitch in how we tell stories about the world out loud to each other. We are obsessed with success, but our relentless focus on the winners gives us a dangerously distorted map of reality. This is called survivorship bias. It happens when we draw big conclusions by only looking at the things that survived. The successful companies, the winning athletes, the people who made it. The problem is the failures, which are the vast majority of cases, are silent and invisible. So we just don't factor them into our decisions. And this bias is the engine of our modern mythology. We celebrate the billionaire college dropout, but we conveniently forget the millions who dropped out and failed. We see the one social media influencer who made it, and we're totally blind to the thousands who tried and just vanished. We keep chasing the blueprints of the winners, wrongly assuming their path is something we can replicate, when in reality, their story is often one of skill combined with an immense and totally unseen dose of luck. The classic example of how to overcome this bias is it's brilliant. During World War II, the military studied planes that came back from missions to figure out where they should add more armor. They saw that most of the bullet holes were on the wings and the fuselage, so the obvious answer, right, armor those spots. But a statistician named Abraham Wald had this life-saving insight. He realized the crucial data wasn't on the planes that came back, it was on the ones that didn't. The planes were getting hit in the engines in the cockpit too, but those planes never made it home. So he told them, armor the places with no bullet holes. He was looking at the silent failures to learn the real lesson. So if our world is governed by random clusters and regressions and invisible failures, where does that leave us? Is human achievement just a lucky walk in the park? Well, the answer isn't so simple. There's one more layer to this story. I want you to think of reality as being shaped by two great forces. On one side, you've got chance, the roll of the dice, unpredictable mutations, the beautiful chaos of just existing. And on the other side, you have necessity, the laws of physics, gravity, the predictable clockwork that structures our universe. But for some thinkers, this isn't the whole picture. The philosopher Charles Peirce, he proposed this fascinating idea, that there's a third force at play, one that works within the chaos of chance and the rigidity of necessity. He called it love, not in a romantic sense, but as the force of human care, of intention and purpose that actively tries to direct outcomes towards something better, toward harmony. And that leaves us with a final and I think really profound thought. Look, we can't escape the laws of probability. We can't outsmart randomness. But maybe our purpose was never to control the game. If the universe deals us a random hand based on a fixed set of rules, maybe the uniquely human act, the act of compassion, of creating, of striving for something better, is our defiant choice to play that hand with grace and to build meaning right in the heart of the beautiful and frankly terrifying randomness of it all.